Hello. In this video, I will introduce the ways in which the European Union has engaged with its neighbours to the east over the last 2 decades, culminating in the recent 20 Deliverables for 2020 initiative. One of the most successful models has been enlargement, or the process of integrating neighbouring countries that have applied to join the EU into the organisation. It has stabilised neighbouring regions in Central and Southeast Europe, enhancing trade and prosperity. However, for various reasons, membership is not always an option in the EU's relations with neighbours, so its external policies towards these countries take a different approach. The so-called association agreements are the most important EU policy tools for third countries. These are legally binding agreements regulating special preferential conditions for trade and the harmonisation of standards. In its eastern neighbourhood, the EU has developed and negotiated a new generation of these agreements with Moldova, Ukraine and Georgia. These association agreements, with their deep and comprehensive free trade areas, are the most advanced and important tools of engagement between the EU and its partners. Nevertheless, it is important to understand that not all Eastern Partnership countries are interested in having such agreements with the EU. In some, where access to political and economic resources is restricted, local leaders are less keen on adopting too many EU rules or adhering to certain norms and values. Meanwhile, other countries are already members of alternative Russia-led organisations such as the Eurasian Economic Union. In 2015, following a review of its neighbourhood policy, the EU recognised that it needed a differentiated approach towards its neighbours. Since then, a policy of varying speeds or varying levels of engagement has developed. Countries that aspire for closer economic and political integration, such as Ukraine, have concluded association agreements. Meanwhile, others, such as Belarus, have maintained a very low level of engagement. As such, the association agreements are not the only offer on the table. Armenia, for example, recently concluded a new type of agreement, the Comprehensive Enhanced Partnership Agreement. This allows it to work with the EU while still maintaining closer links with Russia as a member of the Eurasian Economic Union. The EU has developed several tools that complement the flagship association agreements, such as the European Endowment for Democracy and the Eastern European Energy Efficiency and Environmental Partnership. I shall focus in particular now on the most recent initiative, known as 20 Deliverables for 2020. The 20 Deliverables for 2020 build on the so-called multilateral sectoral platforms that have formed part of the Eastern Partnership since its launch in 2009. These platforms, designed to target multiple countries, were revised in 2015 to cover 4 priority areas. First, strengthening institutions and good governance. Second, economic development and market opportunities. Third, connectivity, energy efficiency, environment and climate change. And fourth, people-to-people contacts. It is interesting to note that with these revisions, explicit references to democracy, integration and convergence with EU standards were dropped. Perhaps this was in recognition of those countries that did not want to pursue the deepest possible integration with the EU. At the end of 2016, the EU formulated concrete goals and defined specific results for cooperation in these priority areas. These so-called deliverables are to be achieved by, you guessed it, the year 2020. The 20 deliverables are not limited to those countries that have signed association agreements. This makes it the most significant recent initiative to move cooperation forward to a new level with those partners that are not pursuing deeper association. The deliverables are quite pragmatic and results-oriented, with an emphasis on tangible benefits. Another goal of the 20 deliverables is to create a common framework for all the Eastern Partnership countries, although not a legal one. The initiative strives to take into account different political systems, domestic realities, and foreign policy orientations. So, what are the most important areas in which the EU and partners aim to achieve results? The initiative promises to build a stronger economy through deliverables such as investment or creating new jobs. Better governance will be served by deliverables such as anti-corruption mechanisms. Stronger connectivity will be provided through energy and transport links. Deliverables on education and training will develop a stronger society. There are also deliverables addressing the development of civil society, equality and non-discrimination, and strategic communications. Of course, the big question remains, can the 20 deliverables be achieved? The jury is still out. Some have described these targets as too ambitious, while others have criticised them for lacking vision. I will end with some of the findings from our own research, drawing on consultations with experts and activists in Belarus. There are warnings that the EU's focus on pragmatic common interests that the Belarusian authorities would welcome should not come at the expense of talking about democracy, norms and values altogether. There is a risk that some deliverables may appear to be fulfilled, but that the regime still finds ways to limit the access of citizens to politics and business. The EU has to manage expectations, beware of backsliding, and make sure that in practice, the initiative does not just provide tangible benefits to those who are supporters of the regime in Belarus. We have a wealth of research on various forms of EU engagement with different Eastern Partnership countries. You can find more in the EU STRAT working paper series on our website.